There we go. I'll let people in,
Yeah.
Paul. So I'll hand over to you.
I'm sort of ready, I think.
Just take your time. Okay, Paul.
Okay, so hello. Who's here? Let's see. I can't see. Excuse me 1 second. Yeah, so hello. What am I doing? Hang on a sec. Sorry.
Take
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah, so when Derek and I spoke about this this demo, we talked about what to tie. So I'd just been away on a bonefish trip, came back yesterday. So we're talking about bonefish flies, but for me, it's bonefish is the epitome of fly tying. Let me show you a small fish this big, 15 inches, 20 inches is huge, 25 inches is a record, 30 inches is like as long as my leg, you never get one. But it's the epitome of sight fishing. It's a challenge, a total challenge. Those fish are so spooky. They're so hard to see. Your casting has got to be spot on. Your fly has got to be spot on in terms of weight, mostly. The retrieve has to be good, and then when you eventually get one, the only way I can describe it is like tying a leader around the back of my truck and me driving off down the road. And this is a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pound fish. It's just amazing. And they live in the most beautiful places. If you haven't been there, you just can't imagine how wonderful it is. Beautiful. Weather's nice. I live in Wales, it always rains. It's just stunning. The first time I did it was truth. I was getting divorced from my first wife, and I thought, I'm going to spend the money. And it was so the late 80s, and I flew out to Andros in the Bahamas. It was right at the beginning of the internet. I found this lady called Betsy Roll in Andros that was advertising bone fishing and scuba diving trips for her husband, Philip Roll. And I flew out there just before Christmas, all them years ago, and met Philip. And we went out bone fishing. It turned out he was really a scuba diving guide. And my trip was the third time he'd ever taken anyone out bone fishing. And it wasn't what you saw, in the books and in the magazines, and YouTube wasn't around then. He had a shitty old 19-foot Boston whaler skiff. You see flat skiffs now where you stand on the front, the engine on the back, he's at the back on a pole, everything's lovely. Yeah, this was a ratty old oil-ridden tub. And we went out, and I ended up standing on the engine end. He was at the bow end just to balance the boat up. And I remember going out bouncing across, the Caribbean isn't a nice, calm place. It's actually quite an open sea. And we were bouncing across, going out to this place called, on the north of Andros, names escape me from it, a series of keys at the top. Oh God, where's it gone? Can't remember. Anyway, and I remember coming off this bouncy, horrible ride, soaking wet. I hadn't even been on the boat for 20 minutes. Like the whole day's ruined already. And I can remember seeing these small islands, and we came around the corner off the open sea onto these shallow islands, and just stuck in my mind. It was like the most beautiful environment you can imagine. Wasn't what I expected, mainly because of the boat, and mainly because I didn't know how inexperienced Phil was. But we got up there, and somehow during that week, we got it together between us. We learned how to communicate. We learned how to catch a fish. Wonderful. Come away from there, couldn't wait to go back. that was how it started. And you know, that whole week was more than the fishing. It was, you know, the islands, the people in the islands. You know, it's so far removed from what we know as life. Great place to go. And the guy that like really encouraged me to go was a guy called Leon Chandler, and he was the president of the Cortland Line Company. And I was talking on a forum on the web at the time. There wasn't Facebook, but none of that existed then. And I remember him saying, "I like bonefish because I like where they live," and that's so true. It's just so far removed from what we are used to living where we live. And those little silver fish, you know, there's nothing here that fight like a bonefish. Nothing. There really isn't. And I like that. I like the combination of the sight fishing, the casting, you know, the take of the fly, and then just lifting that rod and let them, you know, a 3-pound fish will put you into your backing within seconds. What's not to like, really? You know, that's it. So that's really what set me off. So I kept going back with Philip every year since. The last time I went was just before lockdown, prior to this trip. And during lockdown, Philip and Betsy both died of COVID. So there you go. Getting a bit, so, you know, fill it up a bit. But they've been such a big part of my life. There we are. So this time, we went back to the Cayman Islands. I've been there before. And my wife and I went. And, you know, the Cayman Islands is a great destination if you want to go with your partner. If you go to the Bahamas, you know, it's not so good. It's not very developed. You know, the places I used to fish there, if you want an ice cream, you couldn't get one. You know, it's like there really is not much there. So I did take my wife when we first met about 20 years ago. First trip we went on. She didn't like it at all. So this is the first bonefish trip in 20 years. I've gone back with my wife, but it wasn't really a bonefish trip. It was a holiday with a bit of bone fishing. And the Cayman Islands is a good place, really good place. The bone fishing is accessible. You don't necessarily need a guide. You certainly don't need a boat. The island is surrounded by shallow water. There's a road that goes all the way around it. All you need is a hire car. You know, so that was a good reintroduction to going back to bone fishing after lockdown. My next trip is next April. There's 4 of us going. There's a place called the Ragged Islands in the Bahamas. It's so remote. You know, I just know we're gonna have a great trip. The last part of it is a charter plane. You can't even get there without, you know, sort of paying for your own flights. So yeah, so I'm back into the bone fishing. So I thought, well, doing this demo, let's talk about bonefish flies. Yeah. So all right. So yeah. Right. I'm off. I'm going to tie some flies. Let's change the camera over.
Can I just say you've definitely sold that one to me, Paul?
Stephen, I promise you, if you make that trip, you won't, salmon are nothing. You know, salmon are nothing compared to what you'll see. And it's not just bonefish. There's permit. You know, there's things like snappers. You know, and you don't think about, you know, think about bonefish destinations. You don't think about snappers. You don't think about jacks. You don't think about, you know, boxfish. And they fight so hard, and they take the fly so confidently, you know. But the challenge to us is getting that fly right where they're going to take it, and you could be a foot out, you could be 6 inches out, and they don't see it. You know, if they're going in one direction, and you put it just slightly behind them, they're not going to see it, so they're not going to bite it. But if you put 6 foot in front of them, they see a puff of sand, they'll go and grab it. And there's like a pause. You know, you see the fish accelerate, they grab it, you think, oh, he's got it, but you can't feel it, and there's this pause, you know, between the fish grabbing the fly and you feeling it. And as soon as you feel it, all you've got to do is lift your rod and tighten your line. No strike. You just got to make him feel the fly. When he feels the fly, gone. You know, they hook themselves, and oh mate, it's just,
no, I'm up for that sometime.
Oh boy, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. I'll let you crack on. Thanks, Paul.
yeah. Let's change. I've done something wrong. Derek, how do I change the camera again? Derek.
I put myself on mute. If you go down to the bottom of the screen where it says video, there's
Yeah.
a little arrow. If you click on that, that allows you to choose which camera you want.
Yeah. Thank you.
It came up then. There
Is
we
that
go.
it?
Perfect.
Good. All right. So, yeah. Get that in focus.
Yeah.
I've also got a list of people down the right-hand side. Can I? Yeah, got it. Just move that a little bit. So yeah, you know, there's so many bonefish flies, and to be honest, you don't need many. But what you do need is a variation in sizes and weights. It's all about the depth of the water and how fast you get it at the bottom and how fast you get it in front of the fish. So the pattern, I don't think is too important, although I've got loads of patterns I like to use. I think hooks are important. I think the type of weight is important. So let's talk about hooks. So here's a very standard stainless steel hook. This is let's get it so it's good. This is a TMC Tiemco 811S. It's very strong. This is a size 4. The normal sort of sizes are anywhere from size 8 really up to size 2 or even 110. So that's a size 4. Look, I'm going to mess about with this. Sorry, guys, my braces are getting in the way.
Perfect.
Yeah, good. Is that in focus, mate?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, it's a fairly standard saltwater hook, straight eye, barb, which you're going to debarb, I'm sure. So that's one approach. This is my favorite hook from, probably in size 4 and size 2 are my favorite sizes. Sounds big. And yeah, it is rather big. You know, a size 2 hook like this with a set of lead eyes on is a pretty chunky thing. But it's all about getting that fly right down to the fish as fast as you can. And it's a balance between, you know, not being too fast, not making it too shocking. It's all about the depth of water, really. And we're talking anywhere from ankle deep to waist deep. Good hook. In recent years, you know, I think this is a lovely hook. You know, that one I just showed you is a very traditional saltwater hook. This one's an RX bend back keel hook. I love the shape. I hate the color. This black color, just whatever fly you put on it, this black shows through. You know, when you compare it to a stainless steel, especially a non-shiny one, you know, if they made these hooks in this sort of finish, this matte stainless steel finish, you know, I think that would be an excellent hook. And on this recent trip, most of the flies I used were tied on this hook. And yes, I did catch fish, but you know, just my gut feeling on this is it's not very stealthy, you know. And then another one.
Sorry, Paul, just a quickie. Big flies. What's your outfit of choice? Floating line, length of leader, etc.
Right. So yeah. So it depends on the weather. It's not the size of the fly that's you know to cast is the problem really. It's the amount of wind. So if I was to say, if you were to go bone fishing, expect 20 to 25 mile an hour winds. Just expect them, right? I'm not going to say it's going to be that every day, but you are going to experience that when you're there, and probably more. You know, it's going to be warm, it's going to be humid, and it's going to be windy. These are tiny islands in the middle of ocean. So you know, like, it's not the fish. The fish is, you know, a bonefish on a 6 weight is perfectly okay, you know, but be able to deliver the fly to the bonefish on a 6 weight on a windy day is not so easy. So I would say, I would say, if you were to go to the Bahamas and fish for bonefish, I would take 2 9 weights, just in case you break one. And I would take flies from, basically I'd take them in 4 and 2s with various weighted eyes. And some of those flies, if you're fishing off the you know, the bow of a skiff, you know, you certainly do not want one of them to hit you in the back or the back of the head. You know, that you're talking about a big chunk of metal. I'll show you. This is a size 2 gotcha. There's my finger, so it's quite a big fly. This one's got B chain irons on it, so it's quite lightweight. But if you compare it to something like,
Are you using sinking line, Paul? Or
no, never. No, pure floating line. This is the same fly on a size 2 hook. This has got tungsten dumbbells. Yeah, this is heavier than any salmon fly that you'd ever want to cast. So, you know, so I would say 8 weight would be a good average. 9 weight, especially in the Bahamas where you're likely to get bigger fish, high winds, let you make those casts, you know. I think if it's like really wind, a 9 weight, 8 foot 9 weight rod with a 10 weight line on it is the best thing for casting in the wind ever. But where I was just now, the flies we were using were a lot smaller, 8s and 6s. It was all done on foot. It wasn't from a boat. The casts were really short, you know, they're close to you. 8 weight's fine, 7 weight's fine. And on a calm day, a 6 weight, absolutely. You know, make great fun. You know, you get a great fight out of them. Your leaders, 10 foot long. My personal preference, I would put on a 10 foot, 20 pound tip leader with a 14 pound fluorocarbon tippet, especially something like Seagar, you know, Seagar Ace Hard, that sort of thing. It's quite a fine tippet for its strength. But I had situations on this trip where we went down to 10 pound tippet with a really small fly, you know, anywhere between 10 and 14 pound tippet. Leader as long as you can manage in the wind. Floating fly line, tropical fly line, pretty stiff action rod, good reel. You know, yeah. In terms of equipment, you don't need much. Rod and a reel and the line. You know, a floating line generally, and a selection of flies.
Lovely, cheers, Paul.
Yeah. So, I particularly like, you know, I'm not going to go into crab patterns and stuff like that. I'm just going to go into sort of fairly basic bonefish flies, and the classic is the gotcha. This is one of the early shrimp patterns, you know, like shrimp style patterns. And they do eat shrimp, and you do see lots of shrimp in those in the flats when you're walking around. Let me find a decent sized hook so you can see what I'm doing. We're not doing much fly time. We're doing lots of talking. Sorry, boys, girls. There you go. Just shows you really how simple these flies can be. This is a size 4. which is sort of mid-sized bonefish fly. Good all-rounder. Right, so the first thing, they've all got eyes that, the thing is to turn the fly upside down and make it sink. So if you're in really shallow water, just by turning the fly upside down and tying the wing on top of the fly, that'll turn the fly over. Yeah, it'll land hook point up. If you're fishing, and you can be fishing in water 6 to 8 inches deep, and you can see the fish with their backs out of the water as they feed, you know. So you do need some unweighted flies, but mostly, you need some sort of weight. So you'd go lightweight would be, say, normal bead chain. Normal stainless steel is good because it doesn't rust. And if it's not stainless steel, it will rust within the week you're there, and it will rust everything in your box. So it's got to be stainless steel. Then you can go to like metal eyes like these. These are the full in mill ones, which I really like. I don't know what they actually are, but they're heavier than the bead chain. They're lighter than lead, but they're definitely lighter than tungsten. Then you can go to normal lead eyes, size small or medium, for anything up to a size 2 hook. You don't need anything bigger than that. And then if you're fishing in waist deep water or more, then tungsten eyes get that fly down really fast. So a size 4 with medium bead chain eyes would be a good all-rounder and up to knee deep water, depending on how windy it is. Find my snips in my pocket.
What thread is it, Paul? Is it Dyneema?
Yeah, I'm using Dyneema, and I colour the heads with whatever thread. So, if you like this is a typical bonefish pink for a gotcha, but it's 210 denier, and it's easy to make this fly really fat using this thread, and plenty of people do it, and this is a standard thread, but I do like them to be sort of slight and skinny. So this is 50 denier GSP that I'll use to put the fly together. So leave yourself a nice head length. Put the eyes on top of the hook. These eyes aren't heavy enough to really turn the fly over, but they're heavy enough once you've got the wing on and everything else to turn it over. So figure 8 wraps, and what I found, when you start to use these do spin. So I sort of go underneath, and with a GSP you can put a bit of pressure on and get it on really tight, enough to pull it out the jaws. So that's the basis of most bonefish permit flies, is a pair of eyes on there, nicely tied on. So the gotcha used a sort of pearl braid. The guy that invented it, I can't remember now, McVeigh, pulled some fur out of a taxi cab in Nassau. It was the covering on a seat. So no one really knows what color the wing is. It could be this sort of thing. It could be paler, like this. This is craft fur. But I think it pays to have it in a couple of different colors. The body itself is sort of pearl braid, or even just, crystal flash. And we go slightly around the bend, just build up a bit of a body. So, where's my... This is pearl braid. this is quite nice stuff. Just catch it in behind the eyes. Good thing about braid is it's a bit more robust than say crystal flash. It takes a bit of beating. Slightly go around the bend. Take it back up. Cut your tail. I'm going to say shank length. If you want, I like to put a bit of a taper in the body. So if you want to put a taper in the body of a fly, any fly, not necessarily a bonefish fly, catch in your body material halfway down the shank. Back up to the eye. Then you take your first wraps up to the eye. So you put a bit of thickness in, then go back. Be careful where that step is. Start to put your taper in. That's a very easy way to get a tapered body. And that'll work with floss on a salmon fly. It'll work with anything you put on a nymph if you want that tapered effect. Cut that bit short. So just take it between the eyes. There's a thing with beach chain eyes, they've got sharp edges. 50 denier thread is easily cut. So I'm going to go straight for the pink. Let's do that again. Apologies for that. So up the shank, back down the shank. I'll work on that taper. Bear in mind when this fly goes in the water, it'll go in head first with the back of this fly. It'll be the first thing the fish sees as it comes down. So I like it to be quite chunky, with a bit of flash. Not my day here, guys, sorry.
That's the trouble with chain bead, it's sharp.
Pardon me?
That's the trouble with chain bead, they got sharp bits.
Yeah, yeah, beat chain, yeah, absolutely. So that's the basis of the fly, really. Now I'll take my my dubbing needle and just open this braid up. So you've got a bit of a tail. And turn the thing over. So there's only really two more materials, but I am going to do a sort of slight variation of a gotcha here. So the next one is craft fur. When you buy it, there's craft fur and there's craft fur. So you got to look for what they call the ultra select, which of course is a little bit more expensive, but we're not talking loads of money. And it is like natural fur in so much as you've got under fur, you've got the long fibers, you know. So I like to take out that under fur. That makes good dubbing. You can put it to one side. And you've got quite a long sparse wing left. So then I like to sort of hand stack it. So pull out the next level and put it in line with the longer fibers. So you get quite a robust wing. Doesn't need to be too fat. In fact, you know, it needs to be quite skinny. So you put your thread halfway down your head. Would be my way of doing it anyway. Measure the length. So I'd like to go slightly longer than the tail. Yeah, just hold it in there. Take a loose wrap or two right behind the eyes. Bring the wing on top of the shank. It's like doing a salmon fly upside down, then really tighten down. 3 wraps back to where you tied it in. And then come in and cut off your excess. If you're using natural fur, it's easier to cut it before you tie it in. But because this is quite slippy synthetic fur, I find it easier to cut it after you've tied it in, yeah? And the final bit is a bit of flash. In the original one, it was pearl, and I'm looking for pearl. Where's that gone? On the floor. Got it. So I would say, like, this is the fine crystal flash from Vineyard. So it's very fine. You know, it looks quite bold on the camera there, but it is very fine. So I would say 3 strands. If you were using normal crystal flash, maybe 2 strands. So 3 strands, pop it on top. Take a wrap down towards the eye. Fold the other 3 strands back, put them on the other side of the hook. And then trim them roughly the length of the wing, maybe a little bit longer. And then just chop them different lengths just to make sure they don't stick together. Now, if you finish the fly here now, you would have the original gotcha. But what bonefish do love is rubber legs. So I'm going to put some rubber legs on. These are Chicon rubber legs in a sort of orangey pink stripe. I'll just tuck them under the thread, lift the thread up, put them where you want them. Take a turn, hold the other ones back. You want 2 each side of the hook. And build up your head. And this pink thread is very popular for bonefish flies, really. What I see is like hot orange, I see hot pink, I see tan, basic tan color like this. And I see chartreuse on lots and lots and lots of different patterns, but the threads always remain the same. And the heads are always like the hot spot. So you make them, you know, it's not that subtle, to be honest with you. So if you're going bone fishing for the first time, a box full of these in 3 different sizes and maybe 3 different weights per size, and you've got it.
You go through many flies out there, Paul?
No, last week I fished 3. I took perhaps a dozen bonefish flies, a few tarpon flies, like I'll say a few, maybe 4 or 6. And I took 6 crab patterns for permit. I used just a few bonefish flies, but you don't lose them.
Are they quite durable as well, or?
Yeah, once you put a bit of glue on that head, mate, they're not going anywhere, you know. But the type of materials you're using, you know, like this sort of synthetic wing, you know, it's the hook that's going to get damaged first, because you could be fishing over pure sand, or you could be fishing over like really nasty rocks or coral. And I just so in focus, keeps going in and out.
Yeah, it is now, mate.
Yeah, so that's like a really basic one, and you know that and one done in yellow would be good. You know, and you know, there's times when you're out there that the bonefish ain't around, the tide's changing. You know, you go after other fish. There's snappers of all sorts, jacks of all sorts. So it would pay to have this in a couple of different colors, maybe like a chartreuse, like a fluorescent green type thing, You know, jacks and snappers love them. Yellow is good. And you tie them with different length wings so they could go for, you could be a bait fish, could be a shrimp, could be, you know, anything that's out there really. And you know, 9 times out of 10, if you get that in front of the fish and the fish sees it, he's going to go for it. So it doesn't have to be rocket science, but that would be one that would definitely be in my box. The next one that did, like, it was one of the few I used last week, is more of a, I don't know, I would say more of a shrimp fly. I don't know if it could be more of a shrimp fly, but it's a style of fly that I particularly like. And it's sort of, it's not realistic, but you know, it feels like you've made more of an attempt to imitate what's out there. You know, a puff of sand is enough to make these fish go for the fly. So if the fish goes in, sorry, if the fly goes in, it sinks fast, it hits the sand and makes that puff on your first retrieve. You've got a weighted fly in the sand, puff, little puff of sand comes up and the fish sees that, they'll go for it, they'll eat it. So that's, I suppose that's really what you're trying to achieve. But being fly tiers, you know, you sort of like to mess around with what you're presenting. So here's one of these horrible RX black hooks. It's not a horrible hook, it's a great hook. I just wish they did it in silver. Got a slightly long shank. I like that bend. And you can, the reason for that bend back design is you can use a smaller metal eye. And because the heaviest part of the hook, which is the bend and the hook, is below the plane of the shank, the thing turns over quicker. So you don't need to put loads of weight on there. So these are the smallest fully mill eyes you can get, metal eyes. So we'll just pop them on there. These are just black. They come in black, silver, and gold, I believe. So we've got them on there nice. So the effect we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to get this sort of, you know, when the fish is coming for the fly, because they're always, back end of the hook is always facing the fish. It's like this defensive crab shrimp posture where they see the eyes, they see a, you know, they see a bit of hot spot, they see some wiggly legs. So that's what we're trying to achieve with these. This isn't the pattern I'm going to tie, but it's that look, you know, that's what they see. So there's a sort of shrimpy, lobstery, crabby, you know, shape to it. So we sort of build a fly up. Because we're tying it upside down, we have to build it up upside down. So we've got some hooks on. This thing's going to fish in that attitude. So we need some eyes. In this case, like sort of mono eyes that have been melted, or we must have some here somewhere. So the metal eyes are what's going to make it sink. The mono eyes are what the fish are going to see first. So these are sort of melted mono eyes, painted black. You can have them in whatever color you want, I suppose. So they're the first thing on, so leave a bit of room to cut them to length. I want them past the bend of the hook, perhaps a bend and a half back. Put them on fairly loose to start with, because you might have to adjust them. They go directly on top of the shank. So I've got one longer than the other there. Just adjust them so they're good. Pull them both back in. It's worth taking a bit of time there. Then tighten up your thread and go around the shank. So when this fly fishes, those eyes are going to be facing up, okay? Lash them right in. Trim these. Okay, so now you can, these are on such stiff mono, you can bend them out and they'll stay. So now we've got this sort of effect. Let's get the light in a bit better. How's that? So the next thing is a bit of a hot spot at the back. I like, this is just polyarm, orange or pink or chartreuse. Sometimes with polyarm, you get these twists in it, so I just brush it out. Lining up, I think that's too much, so sort of go half of it. This is a size 8 hook, by the way. So we've got a little hot spot at the back, and I like to taper that off. I don't want it too square. Catch it in behind the eyes. So we're sort of building up the body so it's nice and even. We've not got too much taper in it. Get that in nice and tight. Again, at this point, I'd put a taper into it with your scissors. So now we've got that sort of effect. Go back up behind the eyes. Now you can have loads of fun here with all your different color legs. You know, you can go. I quite like these sort of pink stripy ones from Shikong, but there's loads of them. You know, I've got a bag of them here somewhere. Stuff like this. You know, you can put in what you want. You can put in really natural ones. You know, but when this fly's wet and everything is matted together, and you're pulling it, and you see the effects of like little waves, and you know it kicks up a bit of silt. You know, I think a little bit of bright color doesn't hurt because it sort of stands out. So I sort of like the orange, and I like, you know, that's about as subtle as I get, really. So you only want one strand. Easy way of tying these in is just put them behind the eyes, like that. Catch them. Take them down, they're going to be right on top. So if you've got that nice gap, it's worth making the effort there. And then cut them to the length, probably the length of the hook. And that's the basic fly. Apart from that, it's just a body and a wing. For the body, I don't flash. You can add flash like in strands, like the crystal flash we did on the gotcha, or you could add flash in the dubbing. You know, so this is Spectra. Quite like. It's not really known for bonefish flies, but I quite like it. So I sort of like these sort of sandy colors. I like the chartreuse. I like the plain pearl. But I like these. You know, I don't know what color you call that, but it's a sort of sandy color. The one next to it. So we'll just go with this one. And dub on quite a fine layer. I sort of like when the fly gets wet, the orange underbody comes through and you get this sort of translucent effect. This fly caught me 6 fish last week in size 8. And I only had size, in this particular pattern, I only had size 8 with me. You got that?
A name, Paul?
Pardon me?
Has it got a name?
No, that's just something I dreamt up. But, you know, it's not really original, but you know, it's a shrimp style that I quite like, and it just, you know, what I'm trying to convey is, you know, you can use what you've got. Other than the rubber legs, you know, you can make eyes like that easy. A bit of, you know, that tail, that polyarm tail is the stuff I use for parachutes. You know what I mean? It's the stuff that John Tyzak sells. You know, we're using lead eyes you'd use perhaps on a damsel nymph. You know, it's not anything special.
How's about the Slaney Slayer?
I don't know. So we got there. So we got this like sort of, and this really does show up in the water. We'll wet it now in a minute and just we'll see how it all sort of comes together. So then you just put on a wing and quite a short one. And I'm gonna use the colours I've got, right? So I'm gonna use the same colour as I used before. But for the next trip, I want to find a dubbing and a wing that matches. That's just my OCD, I suppose, but it doesn't matter, I don't think. So again, a nice chunk of this. But this time I'm going to tie it quite short. There's one thing I've noticed about these bonefish flies is, you know, it's nice to have a long wing, I suppose, on some of them. But that wing tends to foul. So you'll end up with it fishing one side of the hook or the other. So I like to sort of, you know, and now we're talking the realms of me. We're not talking about what you'll read in a book. It's just what I like. I like it quite short. So this time I'm going to cut it short. So this is how I would tie in a salmon wing, salmon hair wing, loose wrap. And tighten it. I'm not going to put any more flash on it than that. Make sure it's sitting central on the top. Has to be that. You know, if it's one side or the other, that's how it will swim. Then I'm going to whip finish there. You could continue with the hotspot theme. You know, that's horrible white GSP at the front. You know, let's just add a bit of color. So I'm going to match the tail with the head. And that would be the finished fly. Other than where we were fishing last week, there was a lot of grass flats, which when they say grass, it's a type of seaweed that literally looks like heavy grass, and the fish feed heavily in it. So if you throw this fly into the grass and start retrieve, quite often you get hooked up on the grass. So you have to put a weed guard on. So this is a mechanism that when you pull this fly through the grass, it to a point, it diverts the grass away from the hook point, yeah? So I'm going to go back to my GSP, so I'll either put this in before I finish the head. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. This is the way I've sort of hit on. So this here is monofilament, but it's what they call hard monofilament. It's really stiff. This is 20 pound. When it comes off the spool, it's coiled so tightly, you know, you'd never get it straight. But it's meant for bite tippet, for sharp tooth fish, and I know bonefish aren't. But if you put some heat into it, you can get a bit of straightness. But what you have got is that stiffness that will allow you to put a weed guard in front of the fly that will help push strands of weed out the way. You just fold it in half, lash it in on top of the, sorry, under the shank. I'll just take a couple of turns around it just to hold it there. And that's your weed guard. But finish. Got everything in order. You want to cut those just past the hook point. So as you pull that through the weed, these stiff prongs part the weed and let you get through there without too much hang up. But when the fish bites, and it does make a difference, probably one of the reasons I fished this fly last week or so more than anything else is one of the few out of my box with weed guards. So I was fishing it because of the weed guard, not necessarily because of the fly. So, you know, something like that can make a big difference. You know, and if you were fishing over pure sand, well, you'd have the same fly without the weed guards. So then you just add your bit of color in. Put a bit of UV on that to make it beautiful. And that's it. I think there's a lot to be said for you being able to see the fly as well as the fish. You know, because, you know, this is sight fishing in the purest terms of it. And you think you've made it, you can see a fish coming to you. You might have a 30-foot cast. It's rare that the cast is longer than that. You might have a 30, maximum 40-foot cast, including your leader. So if you can see the fish, hang on, let me change my camera again. Yeah, so if you can see the fish and you've made the shot, you see the fly land, that'll give you, you know, you land it where you want to, let's say 5 or 6 feet in front of the fish. But the difference between, say, a 10-foot leader and a 15-foot leader is a lot. So you need to be able to see that fly. So when that fly goes out, lands, you see the plop, you let it settle, the fish is coming onto you or across you, you start to retrieve, right? The only point of reference you've got is the tip of your fly line and the fish. So if you see the fish react to your fly, that helps a lot, you know? So you're putting in retrieves, you're putting in strips, you're changing the speed, you're messing about trying to get that fish to take. But if you're watching the tip of your fly line, you won't get them. It's either the fish or seeing the fly disappear in the fish's mouth that's gonna, you know, really give you that point of reference. So a bright thing on the fly, a bright head, you know, a bright tail, something that helps you see what's going on, is going to make a difference, a huge difference, in my opinion. So let's go back. Right there, you got a bright little fly, but when it wets down, turns to nothing. Everything, you know, sort of blends together. You know, there's lots of little things like that swimming about on the flats. These look awful, but they work. You know, there's something I've been thinking about doing is instead of having the mono eyes at the back, tie them at the front and use them as a weed guard, if you know what I mean. but I'll get around to that. So what I'm trying to do with these sort of flies is show this sort of defensive back, claws out the front, shrimpy eyes, you know, make them, yeah, anyway, I know they work, but simple. Can we have a break for a minute, guys? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, any questions?
You've taken me back to when I first started fly fishing. I used to fish a place called Willingshurst down in Surrey.
Yeah.
And when I very, very first started, they had a fly there called the Willingshurst rat catcher. And the colours of your fly there are pretty much the same.
There you go, you've just got the name.
Rat catcher.
Rat catcher, I like it.
Oh, do you like that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, bonefish flies aren't really rocket science, but you see the reaction to the fly is, you know, you see it so much more than trout fishing because everything just happens right in front of your face. You know, differences in weight are huge. Your presentation is pretty critical. So, you know, if you had, say, a size 6 with medium dumbbell eyes on, you know, the plop of the fly is enough to either attract them or scoot them off. You know, so it's constantly changing weights, really. Wind makes a difference. You know, the fact there's ripples on the top of the water, they can't see you quite as well. You know, that's going to make a difference. The difference you lead them by. So 3 feet with lead eyes, 8 feet with lead eyes, the 8 feet presentation is going to win every time. You know, so if they're swimming in a particular direction, they go in quite steady. You know, they haven't seen you, they've relaxed, they're calm. The longer you lead them by, the better. And it's like they get 3 feet away, you make that puff in the sand with the fly, that's enough, they'll see it and they'll compete for it. So if there's 3 or 4 fish, you know, of those 3 or 4 fish, 2 of them are going to go. And, you know, they'll go for it and they'll compete for it. And that's what you want. You know, so it's like that sort of balance of weight, size of the hook to get it down, you know, the ability to cast it accurately in the wind. I think that's really what it's about. It's not so much the actual pattern. When you get off shrimp patterns, they'll take bait fish, little tiny zonkers tied upside down work with lead eyes. They eat crabs, and you see, you know, they're not like the crabs we have around our shores. Most of them are quite fast swimmers. They'll have one claw bigger than the other. They can be, you know, a permit or a good sized bone will take a big crab, you know, something like 2 to 3 inches across the shell. That's not something you could easily imitate or cast on a fly rod, but they will hit them, and their mouths are, you know, evolved to take those things and deal with them. So they don't have teeth; they have a crusher plate inside their mouths, and you know, one of the standard guide tricks is when you catch your first permit, they say put your finger in its mouth. Right, if you do that, you're a fool, because you know, it'll flatten your finger. You know, they're very, very powerful. So imitating crabs, yeah, if you can, you know, there's lots of different crab patterns. They work, and you can make them very dense and very heavy. You know, so bigger bonefish, permit, live in deeper water. You can get that fly down to them. So a crab thing would be a good crab style fly would be a good thing to have. Apart from that, I think you're pretty well equipped. You know, a few shrimp patterns. So you know, when you go down to the out islands in the Bahamas, where it's very remote and huge expanses of flat, just unimaginable areas of shallow water. You know, different depths, but still shallow. Nothing more than waist deep for miles and miles, tens of miles. You know, you know, they'll say take 2 and 4 in 3 different sizes, gotchas and rubber leg gotchas. That's all you need. And you know, it sort of goes that way, really. But there's more niche areas where you need the shallow water flies. like around the Caymans. There's also Mexico's the same. It is sort of very, very shallow, very spooky water. Small flies work. Belize is the same. And then you get these the mangrove areas where the fish are in and out of mangrove swamps, and they're like super strong leaders become important because the first thing the fish does is take the fly and run straight into the mangrove roots, which to me is not much fun because you have to get out of the boat and untangle it all and get back in the boat and fight the fish. It's just not my favorite thing. But yeah, small selection of sort of thought out weighted flies. So next one I'll do is something I tried up many years ago. Very good friend of mine, a guy called Hans Vellenman, came up with a fly called the CDC Elk. So we're talking, I don't know, again 30 years plus. And I was tying bonefish flies called the Bone-fish bitters, which had an elk hair wing or a deer hair wing on it. Set of eyes, but then it had epoxy molded around the eyes. Very thing to buy at the time. You had to have a little wheel, 5-minute epoxy hadn't been invented. They just, you tied the eyes on the hook, you covered them in epoxy, stuck them in the wheel went round overnight. And then he went back and tied the fly, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was tying some of these and it's just suddenly come into my head, why am I doing this? And I thought Hans's fly. And I tried a thing called the Bone-fish CDC Elk and sent it to Hans, a little picture of it to Hans, and he laughed and he said, "Oh no, that'll never work. You're taking the piss." He thought I was joking with him really, but anyway, it did work and it still does. And this is the latest version of it. Change the no, wrong one. So this is intended to be a sort of crab pattern. So it's got the flat horizontal shape. This is a big hook. This is a size 2. It's got very heavy eyes on it. The elk hair on the top helps it turn over fast. The CDC underneath, even though it's very weighty, it doesn't give it a really harsh plop. Still sinks like a stone though. I've got my lovely rubber legs. I've got long feelers at the back. That's crystal flash, but it's black. So you see, there's not many critters on the flat. So I've got pearl feelers coming out. They're either they're quite dark and quite natural. And if you look at it from the fish's perspective, you still got that sort of upright defensive attitude, the mouthpiece, the eyes. That's what the fish see first. So we'll do this one next. The original Bone-fish CDC and Elk didn't have the eyes, didn't have the rubber legs. It was just the CDC, the lead eyes, the front, and the wing. And it was tied quite small. This is a big one, size 2. But the original one I was tying on 8s and 6s with just grey CDC, just like the trout fly, tied upside down. But it really did work, still does. So we'll have a go at that. Just pinch me fag. Any questions while we're at it?
Best fly, best fish for your trip.
Best fly was this one. Best bonefish was £6. I had 5 bonefish. I fished 3 mornings with a guide. I had 2 permit. I had a mutton snapper, which was about £12, which was a total surprise. The first night I had a tarpon that kicked my ass. That's not something you should do on your own, by the way, boys. Just go tarpon fishing, because You can hook them, you can fight them, you can play them, but then you've got to land them. And you know, if you've been smashed in the nuts by a 40-pound fish that's stronger than you, you know, it takes 2 men to land one. It really does. Not my favorite thing, tarpon fishing. They're lovely to catch and fight, but I just wish you didn't have to land them. You know. We call it snappers. My wife and I spent the morning catching a thing called schoolmaster snappers. None of them were bigger than 8 inches long, but they sort of hang around structures, so a coral head or something like that. And where you'll find one, you'll find 30 of them, and they're dead easy to catch. You just got to get a fly close to them, a couple of strips, and they're on. So that's fun. What else do we see? I call it boxfish, which is, I don't know what to describe. You'd have to Google it, boxfish, and have a look. They're most unlikely looking things. They look like a cardboard box with little fluttery fins sticking out the side. But
Is that a cowfish?
Boxfish.
All right.
Yeah. So if you, but they fight harder than a bonefish. But you don't see many of them. And the one I caught was, I don't know, perhaps 8 or 9 inches long. And I have to say, it was the first one I ever caught. And they got like a crushing mouth on them. There's no teeth. You know, they just punch down on the fly, and then you're in for a surprise because you can see them there, and they look really sort of immobile, and they're just messing about on the flat. And then when you got one, it just comes alive. Off it goes. Interesting fish. We didn't go offshore. We could have gone offshore and gone for, you know, wahoos or tuna or whatever. We didn't do that. But there's huge opportunities there. Huge opportunities, and all free. And all accessible, apart from the boats offshore. You don't need a flat skiff. All the way around the island, you know, there's accessible water. There's a road that goes right. Hire a car is what you need. Go around, pull in, walk down to public beach access, they call it. Basically, it takes you down onto the flats. You can park anywhere that says that. You can walk down, and there it is. It's just there. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's it's not the best bonefish destination in the world, but for easy access, mixed fishing that you can do on your own, self-guided, it's hard to beat, I think. Right, so let's have a go at one of these, shall we? Go back to the TMC. I think this is a size 2. Yeah, it's about size 2. So for this one's got to be quite heavy in this size. So these are the fully milled dumbbells. This is a size large. Take some whipping on the hook. This is quite a chunky fly already. You know, you have to be really careful with a fly like this, casting it in the wind. You've really got to think about what you're doing, because you know this will leave a scar. If this hits the back of your shoulders, or you know, and it hits you at speed, which when you're casting a fast action rod is gonna, it's probably like being shot with an air rifle. So you have to be very careful when you're casting this sort of thing. And if you're on a boat with a guy behind you, yeah, I know you're paying him, but he doesn't deserve one of these in the back of his neck. Anyway.
You
This
don't
is the
want
same
it hitting your
sort of.
rod either, do you?
Pardon me?
You don't want it hitting your rod either.
No, no, you don't want it hitting anything. But just saying, you know, this, you know, it's yeah, it's quite a brutal weight of fly to throw around, really. So same sort of thing as the what do we call it? The little bonefish one with the rubber legs.
The rat catcher.
The rat. Yeah. So again, we're just gonna take that off. I'm going to use different type of eye on this one because this hook is quite big. You can buy these easy shrimp eyes. Just drop that one on the floor, and they are easy. This is a size medium, which is probably the biggest size you'd ever need. They look like this. So you just catch them in. There's no cutting or get them on top of the hook. And what you want to do is bring the whole lot slightly around the bend. And then they're in nice. Ramp in the lens there, guys. And then some flash. You know, I don't think it matters what, but I quite like this sort of, I'm saying it's black, it's a sort of really dark green. So put in perhaps 3 of those. They're quite long. Put it in, double it. Take off 3 of them. Again, we've gone round the bend. So when this fly fishes, the eyes and the mouth is sort of facing up towards the fish. Then rubber legs. I'm going to use the same ones as I used before. I particularly like this one. I like the ones that are sort of clear with a hot orange tip. Let's see if I can find something. I like this particular one. So these are, I don't know what they call them. I think they're from Hairline, but they're sort of clear with this hot orange. I quite like that. So 2 of those. Again, you're sort of giving them hot spots to hit. You probably want to tie these in the length you want them because you can't trim them from the front or you cut the hot orange off. So you've got to be pretty careful. So say again, the hook in the eyes, length out the back. Gently catch them in behind the eyes. And lash them right on top. You want that separation. Come forward a couple of turns just to keep it there. Don't be scared about putting a bit of glue in or anything you want just to hold it together. But, you know, I'm going to trim the flash a little bit shorter than the legs. I know it's hard to see in there, but I'm going out of focus on me. So that's the basis of the fly. And from here, you could do many, many, many bonefish flies with all this being the same for every one. The main difference with this is the CDC body. So the colors I like are pink, tan, which I've would be my favorite, but I haven't got any left. And the other one I really like is blue. And a lot of the crabs you see on the flats are blue, like this sort of blue. So, you know, you take your pick. So we like blue catches, tan catches, pink catches. So I'm just going to do pink. And the sort of CDC you want is not the good DJ, you know, natural sort of stuff. This is dyed from white. It's not the best. Petitjean, trout line, anything like that will do. But what is nice if you can get them sort of fairly uniform. So trout line's probably, I think, probably the best for this sort of fly. So I've bunched together, I don't know, 4, perhaps 5 there. Catch them in good side towards you, tips to the rear. And then just start to wrap them. And there's me hackle pliers there. I'm just going to cut that one because it's going to give me a problem. You want the butts more or less even, so you can grab them with your pliers. And now really all you want to do is start to rack them forward, give them a bit of a wet fly fold every time you go around. You're probably going to have to do this in 2 bunches. It's not the cheapest fly in the world when it comes to CDC. That's that first bunch in. And bear in mind of that pack of pink CDC, I've gone through and picked all the good ones already, but the long ones. And then butts out. And I use a bit of a comb just to start to bring everything back. Anyway, your next bunch. This is a great casting fly. It's got air resistance to it, so it slows it down as you cast. So like if you cast a Clouser Minnow of the same size and the same weight, it sort of goes through the air at a much higher velocity. This CDC sort of slows it down. It certainly slows down the entry to the water. Oh, it looks a shocking mess. We'll sort that out in a minute. Make sure that's all caught in. Right, so you want to sort of comb this out, make the most out of all those fibers. I sort of like to stroke them all back and up and just pluck them so that there's none too much there longer than the eyes, if you like. I sort of comb it so most of the fibers are going to be under the wing. Left quite a large head area here. And that's mainly because if I want to add, I'm going to put a deer hair wing in. if I want to add a weed guard to that, I need to put the deer hair wing in, allow for the butts of the deer hair, and then allow for enough room to put a weed guard in. So it looks like I've left a lot of room, but it's for a purpose. So for your wing, I quite like, this is bleached deer. It's quite long and fine. Natural deer is good, elk hair is good, whatever you want really. But I sort of want quite a defined shape when I finished. I need my tapper somewhere. There it is. I've taken quite a lot of deer hair there. Hard to say how much. But sort of get rid of all the rubbish. Pop it in your tapper. I know, probably told you this before when we're talking about salmon flies, but when when you're going to even up your tips, if you've got any form of curvature in your hairs, if you tap it at an angle rather than vertically, tap it at an angle, then that curvature will all go in the same direction when you take it out of the tapper, and it comes out beautifully. So we've got quite a clump there. Let's get rid of the loose ones. So this here also could be used as a weed guard. So if the hair is really stiff, which this is almost like that, if you bury the hook point in the hair, there's a sort of natural weed guard there. Something that's worth thinking about. So take your thread, position it, let's say a third away from the eyes, 2/3 away from the eye of the hook. Measure what you want. So I'm measuring from, I want the eye of the hook to be free of hair. So from the back of the eye of the hook to the tip of the hook, if you like, the point. Change hands. Cut the hair vertically. So that's what you've got. Put the cut edges to the back of the hook eye. Take a loose wrap. Make sure it's all on top. And pull tight. Take your thread in front of the hair. And when you whip finish, if you're doing this on elk hair, caddis, or any sort of flared hairwing fly, whip finish horizontally. So go in underneath. So when you pull back, you pull in your whip finish back against the wraps that you tied in with. Makes ultra secure. Now sort of press down with thumb and get that sort of crabby shape. This is one of the few flies I'll put any form of head cement on for anything really. I just put a dab of blue or whatever you want, just into that head. And just underneath. So what we got here is quite a heavy fly. It is a very heavy fly actually. That presents quite naturally. It doesn't splat on the water. You've got buoyant materials that sort of help it to a point land gently. It sinks quite naturally, but it does sit on the sand. When you pull it, it's got that nice puff. It's got that defensive attitude. Oh God, what's going on? It's got that defensive attitude. The eyes looking at the fish. I like it, and it works for me. Doesn't have to be pink. Yellow is good, actually. Yellow is a good one. So you sort of try and match the fly to the bottom you're fishing over. So if you're fishing over grass, olive would be good, or natural grey would be good. That's it. Bone-fish CDC Elk. Hans Velleman would turn his grave, but you know what? It works, and I think he secretly likes the fact that it's gone from a sort of trout fly to a bonefish fly. Here we are. We all still there?
Excellent, mate. Well done.
Yeah.
I'll do one more, and like a really sort of basic one everyone knows. Clouser Minnow. But this is like a super quick way of doing them. And yeah, it's a great fly. It's a good bonefish fly. It's a good bass fly. It's a good anything fly. Just depends on the size you tie it and the length of it, really. So for this, I'm going to use a really strong hook. This is a Gamakatsu SL12 short size 4. And this hook is super strong, as you can see. Really good for trigger fish, because they'll bend any hook before they even get themselves hooked. There's such a strong bite on them. I like the upturn point. There we go. So for a Clouser minnow, you want bucktail. So the colours I like are white and chartreuse. This is a nice, new, fresh bucktail. The fibres down this bottom end are lovely. They look great, nice and straight and blah, blah, blah. But when you tie them in, they flare. And we don't really want them to flare. Up the top, not so bad. Flare less. This is a nice bucktail, this one. Normally up the top, you can get a bit of damage and so on. So I normally aim for like halfway up. You get the sort of fairly long fibers that don't tend to flare so much. And I think that's important when you're tying a Clouser. Same with the white. This one's been, well, you can see on this one, it's been fairly well used in that area. So I'll see what I can salvage from this, but we'll see. And the only other materials you need, apart from the thread, some eyes, is some flash of some sort. Bob, right, okay. So Bob Clouser, the guy that invented, I've got one here that was tied by him somewhere. He used crystal flash in a rainbow color on his original one, which of course I haven't got, but I'd just be interesting to show you this if I can find it. Let's escape me for the minute. Oh, escape me for the minute, sorry. So, thread. Bob used fish Clousers any size. He used Uni 80 in light Cahill. Doesn't matter what color the Clouser was, that was his go-to thread. And he had a quite a specific way of tying them that once you got round to trying it, you realize how quick and how secure it was. So I can't find Cahill. So I'm going to use 6/0, which is quite fine for a fly like this in yellow, similar. Which is Danville 6/0. Let's try that. So his approach would be, his go-to would be a size 2. This is a size 4, so it's one size smaller. So what I like about his way of tying these, and they're such an effective fly. It's quite economical way of tying it in terms of materials and wraps, and it just shows what you get to when you've tied a fly. I don't know how many times you tied one of these, but it's got to be millions. It just shows how it evolves into a fast way of, producing flies. So we're going to tie quite a heavy one here again. And so I've gone halfway down the shank of the hook with the thread, okay? So I'm going to put the eyes in there. Again, these are the size large, fully milled metal eyes. Bob used sort of lead dumbbells. We pop that in. Oh God, here we go. It's gone from tying heavy threads to light threads.
Nice rescue.
Hmm?
Nice rescue.
Yeah, I do it so often, mate. Yeah.
Paul, interesting question. When you use the middle of your bucktail, what do you do with the rest of it?
Middle of what?
When you use the middle part of your bucktail,
Yeah.
what do you use the base and the tips on?
I don't. You can tie salmon flies with it. That bottom end, I'd probably throw away. I know it's horrible. The back of it, you can use this. This is really nice material. It's good for, you can do a Clouser in this color. You could, but like a grey wolf, the original grey wolf used this for the tail and the wings. So yeah, this is useful. The tips just depends on, you could use this for a Clouser, you could, but if you want the nice straight stuff that, that's where you get it from. Personally, I don't use bucktails for anything else really, just Clousers. So I've got them in white, I've got them in tan, I've got them in this color is really useful. And for around here, like sea bass on our coast, chartreuse and white goes really well. So it might sound wasteful, but in here there's probably 100 Clousers. You can get rid of the tips and the base, but this stuff is really thick and it flares badly. Anyway,
Right.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Looking at that dyed and that, I had a nasty experience a while ago. I got a dyed badger cape, dyed orange.
Yeah.
Neglected it, and I was rescuing it. I washed it, and I was absolutely amazed the amount of dye that came out.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazed. And you
Yeah.
buy the stuff, and you take it for granted that the dyes go old fast and it's going to be permanent, but it's not very often the case.
It's interesting. Yeah, I find that it's not on everything, but Tony, the thing to do is have a go and dyeing it yourself, and it's all about the fixative you put in, so the acid content.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can. achieve yourself if you have a go, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and you know, that's what I would say. If you know, you could buy a bunch of like reasonably cheap badger capes, or you could go to someone like Sam McGowan, Irish Fly Supplies, and buy lovely dyed stuff. You know, Sean Stanton does lovely dyed stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Christina Chevron, if you get your hands on it, does lovely, really, really lovely dyed stuff. I think the sort of bigger companies, you know, I'm not gonna say the name, but those big famous American people from Colorado, you know, I'm not sure the dye jobs they do are great, and I'm not sure the colors they do are great. Especially, sorry, that's probably not fair. From our, you know, us as British tyres, when we think about claret, when we think about golden olive, when we think about those traditional colours that we're used to, you know, I'm not sure that you get that from those sort of people, you know. But if you buy from Sam, you know, you buy from people like Pat Nolan, you know, they understand the colours and what you're trying to achieve, purely based on, you know, our UK sensibilities for it, you know. I'm not being critical of those companies. I just, you know, I know I've been disappointed buying a claret, let's say, from there, that, you know, just comes through as like a sort of reddish purple.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth trying it yourself, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah.
All you're going to do is piss off the missus.
I was just amazed when I watched this cape from a well-known supplier, and the amount of dye that come out. It coloured the water completely.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, you take it for granted it's going to hold fast when you buy these things, but yeah, not always the case.
Yeah, no, I would highly recommend if it's sort of wet fly colors you're looking for, like lake colors, that sort of thing. I would highly recommend Sam McGowan. He's the prices are good. The dye jobs are just. Oh, I'll show you some. They're just superb. Hang on. There's a few grabbed out of the box. So like that's a hot orange. You know, so that'll tie. Let's have a look. That would, you know, that'll tie size 12s down, like for wets or salmon necks. It's beautiful, and the way to tell is when you look on the back, because the dyes that are like Vineyard, for instance, they call protein dyes. Okay, so the dye attracts to protein. So there's more protein in your skin than there is in the actual feather. So when you turn a cape over, you know, that hasn't been that well prepared, most of the dye is in the skin. You'll know this. Now I've said that, you'll know this. Right? If you turn a dyed cape over, sometimes the back is so dark, it's so full of dye, all the dye has gone into the skin.
You're right. Yes. Yeah.
So here, the dye has gone into the feather, and that's it's been dyed quickly. It's been dyed with quite a high acidic fix. Yeah. So when they say vinegar, I would say go for at least 20% acetic acid that you would buy in a home brew shop. It's vinegar, but it's strong vinegar.
Right.
Yeah. So that fixes the dye. So you know, that's a really, really well dyed neck, and that's Sam McGowan.
Right, got you.
Yes. These ones. Sam McGowan again. So this is sort of acidic yellow. And again, look at how the skin on the back hasn't got that really dark color.
Right, got you.
That's what to look for, Tony.
Yeah. Now that you pointed that out, I can see that. Yeah,
that's magenta, same sort of thing. Yeah, so it's so the dye has gone into the feathers rather than the skin, you know. Yeah. Anyway.
good. Thank you. Thanks for that.
So here's a bucktail, and you can see the dye is in the skin.
Yeah.
There we are. So going back to the Clouser, the first thing to do is put on the white, because this is going to fish the upside down. So the top of it's going to be the bottom of the fly. Yeah. I'm just going to try and harvest a bit of bucktail out of this. So you take a clump, right, and that's way too much. So we're going to take out all the short hairs. It's quite a long fly. Let's I'm gonna have to rearrange. Focus, yeah. It's quite a long fly, so we don't want to actually stack this stuff, but we want to try and get rid of all the stuff that sticks out the sides. So, you know, don't want to be too precious about it, but get it down so it's quite sparse. There we are. So we're about, I don't know, 5 times the length of the hook there. Change hands. Cut it square. Catch it behind the eye on top. Couple of wraps. Go over the eyes. Shouldn't have let go there. Go over the eyes. Shouldn't have let go. Over the eyes, tight behind the eyes, tight in front, tight at the back. Open wraps, quite loose. Just keep it loose. Open wraps back, in front of the eyes. So we haven't got a massive flare at the tail. I know it looks like, you know, it's loose bucktail. It is what it is, but it's not flared out massively. Turn the hook over. Now we want some flash. Which I can't find. I'm very sorry I'm not that organised tonight, but I only got home yesterday, and yeah.
You're doing fine, Paul.
Sorry, mate. But, oh. We're using some chartreuse flash, and you can put quite a bit of this in. I suspect this is as or more important than anything else in this particular fly. So I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 strands of it. So all I do here is bring it up under the thread, pop it on top, take a couple of turns forward, bring the rest back, and a couple of turns back. So we've got half the flash on one side of the hook, half the flash on the other. and then trim it just a little bit longer than the bucktail, and then just put a few different lengths in there, just so it's not going to warp together and sort of mat together. We've got that, and then the chartreuse. Again, in the same part of the wing, same part of the tail. You can really see here now the white I took off, I was scavenging on the skin. I was just taking a clump from the prime part of the skin, or the tail, and you can see how good it is. And again, just whittle at it so it's quite fine. Cut it to length. Go over the hook on top. Grab those butts, and it's really, he really put in quite a small, neat, tight head. A lot of times you see Clousers, they've got a massive, big chunk of head on the front, which I don't think is very sightly. Then we just whip finish. So we've got a size, in this case, size 4 hook, tied with 6/0 thread. He would have used 8/0. So then you take out the vise, get rid of all the loose hairs. Anything you don't like goes. Get it back in the vise. And you sort of got this quite sleek. Oops, dropped it on the floor. Quite sleek, lightweight, even though it's got heavy eyes on it, easy to cast. And when you see little shoals in the water, a small bait fish, this sort of skinny profile works really well. The difference to make this fish even better is you get yourself some hard as nails or similar, or epoxy resin or whatever. And you give, oh, that's gone. You know, when hard as nails comes, it comes pink, but it dries clear. So this is really fresh. So round the head, between the eyes, over those wraps, those loose wraps at the back of the hook. And turn it over. Around the head. And the base of the wing, like really soak it in. And do that 2 or 3 times. And what that does is it stops the wing fouling. And that's the real secret to his flies. And if you buy his book and read how he does them, it makes total sense. The difference in fishing one like this and one that's all flared out. Well, you try it, you'll see. And you've got to let that dry, and then maybe another coat. You've got really good fishing fly, really good fishing fly. So you definitely need some of these in your box if you go bone fishing, not necessarily for bonefish, but for anything else you might come across, you know. So I know I've only tied 4 flies, guys, but we happy with that?
Perfect.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Paul.
Superb, Paul. Learn something new every time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, mate.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
Who's that? Who said thank you, Paul? Then there's a lady there. Who's that?
That's
That's-
great.
That's me.
Who's
Great.
who?
Don't forget, guys, Brit's doing a demo on Saturday, and you, Brit?
Oh, yeah. It's just an open tie, so everybody just ties whatever they want. Mostly a bullshit session.
4 o'clock UK time.
I've been looking for a
Bring
place.
hip, bring hip boots. It gets deep.
Bring your own.
The link is on the WhatsApp group.
Derek and Paul, it's Ken. I'm new to the group. I spent a lot of time in South Africa fishing up in the Mozambican coast, just below Mozambique. There is a Temco hook available in stainless steel, brushed stainless steel, and it has the kink in it already. It's the Temco, the 411S. I don't know if it's still available or you can order it, but it beats that black hook that you were using with the kink in it.
I love the shape, but like I say, I hate the black finish.
Yeah, this is brushed stainless steel. What I can do is, Derek, I can maybe send a photo, or Paul, I can send you a photograph.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant hook.
I'd love that. I would. Honestly, I would. I'd really appreciate that if you can send that for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I say, I'd spent 30 odd years in Johannesburg, and I went round all the fishing stores and cleaned them out of the Temco 411S hooks.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah,
I can give you 4 or 5 if you want, like, you know.
Oh, mate, no, that's okay. Send me the code and I'll search for them. But that would be. I'd really appreciate that because.
Well, I don't have. I'll see if I've still got the code on the outside of my fly box. I took them out of the actual boxes they were in. But yeah, I can show you what they look like. They're fantastic hooks.
Yeah.
Put a picture on the WhatsApp group, Ken.
I will, yeah. Also, I've got another fly that I tie myself, and it's also for kingfish, 3-spot pompano, bonefish. I used to give flies to my mates that were going to the Seychelles and stuff, and you got a lot of big bonefish there. Yeah,
I'd like to see a picture of that.
oh yeah, but also the use of Sally Hansen, the nail polish. Yeah, I've got into trouble a couple of times for cleaning my girlfriend's stock of her nail polish. It's in your fly tying kit, you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I use for certain patterns. I use artificial eyelashes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to tie because you were in Johannesburg, you're at altitude. I used to tie the stock base of my fly so that I could go down to the coast, and the fish just eventually they will destroy your fly. Yeah. But if you can go back to the basics again, it saves you a lot of time and money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Anyway, thank you for this evening. It was lovely.
Well, do you know what? I love tying for you guys, and I feel like really chilled doing it. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Well, I as I say, just if somebody could send me an email, I'll send you a couple of photos and stuff, and yeah, take it from there.
Yeah, Derek.
Derek,
yeah. You could send him the link to the group. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the group already, and you can.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's all you got to do is post to the group, and we'll all see it, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's maybe about 7 or 8 photographs of flies that I could send to you.
Yeah,
okay.
You can see them.
Oh, the best to get on the group.
Stick them on the group.
Okay.
Cheers,
I will.
Paul.
All right, guys, I'm going to go and have my pizza. Lovely to see you.